Very welcome to Garibaldi Red as we look back on another fine win for Nottingham Forest, a 4-0 victory over Reading, which was within 2 points of the playoffs in 9th place. And we'll look ahead to the game against QPR as well. First of all, in the company of former Reds midfielder David Prutton. Hello, Prutz, you well?
I'm very well. How are you two, dear men?
Well, I'm wonderful. I'll introduce the second of the dear men in Reds fan, Mikey Clarke. You well, Mikey?
Yeah, really, really good, especially after Saturday. Fantastic.
Yes, we'll come to you first because we were both there. Prutz was in the Sky studio covering Fulham v Barnsley, I think. What did you make of it on Saturday, Mikey, overall 4-0 win?
Really good. There's my dog. If she obviously loved it as
well.
I was really.
You want to take your dog out or look quiet your dog and I'll come to Prutz?
Yeah, go on then. No, I'm sorry.
Mute yourself, Mikey.
Unbelievable, Mikey. He's normally such a pro as well, isn't he?
I know, normally, yeah. Right, Prutz, a 4-0 win. I know you didn't see the game. We'll get Mikey's thoughts on it. What message does it send, if anything, to the teams around them?
Well, I think it's an emphatic result. Obviously, as you dig down into it a little bit, the game obviously got put to bed more in the second half, and it seemed to be pretty keenly fought, didn't it, over the course of the first half? But it was just it's resounding. It makes people like Mikey smile as he's come on today, even though he's disappeared now to throw his dog out the window. But it does send out a message because you've got a Forest side that's making a lot of people very, very happy. The atmosphere seemed absolutely amazing from what I'd seen. Not just games in the Championship to look forward to, but big games against big teams that Forest would have seen as equals in years gone by, of course. So I think it does send out a very good message. It also shows the quality that they've got. Keinan Davis, we're going to come on to chat about Ryan's goal. The way that they managed to take the game away steadily from a plucky at times Reading was thoroughly professional.
I have to unmute myself. This is going so well. Someone's hoovering in the hallway, the cleaner at the moment. People can hear the hoover in the background. Mikey, yes. Give us your overall thoughts on the game and I'll mute myself again.
Okay, well, my dog loved it, as you could hear at the start, so she was great. Now, I tell you what, I was pleased at that. Sometimes I'm late in my seat, and thank the Lord I wasn't this week because we came out the traps absolutely. I can't remember a goal that quick. Maybe Matt Derbyshire from a few years ago, and that was a long time ago.
2000 was the previous
record. That was.
Someone scored against Norwich in 2000. It wasn't Prutz, but I think that was
it definitely wasn't me.
We started like a house on fire. It was a fantastic start, and you just thought, oh, maybe this could be one of them sort of 6-7-0 shoo-ins that you get, occasionally. Remember one against Swindon where we got 6 or 7, and my gut feel was, is it going to be the same? But like anything, I'm sure we'll talk about early goals. It kind of, weirdly enough, it kind of broke our rhythm a little bit, which was strange. I think they were maybe as surprised as everybody else was, but I actually thought Reading grew into the game quite well in the first half, and there were moments where I don't think Lucas Shaw started. I might have been wrong,
no,
but
he came on.
Really, really weird. I thought in the first half, if they had somebody up front that could put those balls away, they might have, got an equaliser or maybe even taken the lead. But I thought they played okay. But you can kind of see, certainly when the second goal went in, and I think Cooper alluded to it as much, you could physically see on the pitch some of their heads drop. And then I think we sort of got back to what we were good at, which is, quick movement, bringing the ball out of defence, balls into the box, off the ball running was magnificent, especially when he brought the subs on. So I thought, really bizarre start in so many ways with a goal, and then not a great first half performance. But like I said, they obviously reset at half time, came out much the better side second half. And it was a joy to watch. And at the end, some LA's going on. You got Kafu doing flicks around the corner and all sorts of stuff. It was incredible to watch. But no, just another really good day. Really good day.
We'll get into the specifics in a bit. It was dampened by Max Lowe going off in the first half and probably more so Steve Cook going off at the end. I think press is today, so we'll hear more from Steve Cooper today, looking ahead to QPR, but it's pretty unrealistic to imagine them playing certainly on Wednesday and probably against Liverpool. How big a blow is that to Forest Prutz, especially Cook, I guess? Is he the one?
Yeah, it's. Well, I always thought he was quite a shrewd acquisition, a player that's still got a lot of miles left on the clock, and quite clearly is a leader of men. And I think, as you say, given the time of the game as well, right at the end, and you're kind of looking forward to the next a couple of games, of course, championship points are at the absolute forefront of everyone's mind with regards to Forest. But that game next weekend as well just looks fabulous, doesn't it? It'll be one hell of an atmosphere. And to miss out on something like that would be gutting for him. But it's about getting him and assessing how severe the damage is, because two key players, you feel that now we're heading towards the run-in. I think there is a specific time that you can start calling it the run-in. I don't think it's quite yet. It's probably a couple of games before Easter. But it's, yeah. You just wish them all the best, really, because they have been part of what has been a really good feel-good portion of the last kind of few months of the season, really, haven't they, for Forest?
Mikey mentioned one thing there that you can speak to from experience about scoring so early in a game that it's not problematic, but sometimes you can just ease off a little bit and not play with that intensity. I mean, is that a real thing in your experience?
It's funny that Mikey says that, because it can be, because if you were offered 1-0 after 17 seconds, then 4-0 at 90 plus minutes, then you're quite obviously going to say that sounds great, a very straightforward day's work. But there is sometimes that thing when you go running out, you're all pumped up, you're ready to go. And even in your wildest dreams, you go, well, I didn't think we'd do it after 17 seconds. And after that, you're kind of thinking, well, there's just so much left of the game. So I think, as Mikey says, with his assessment of what he saw from Reading, there was a good save from Horvath. There was also, I can't remember who the cross was to the back post, which was a pretty decent chance for Reading. Which could like spark, it almost kind of sparked them into life more than it did Forest. But over the course of the piece, it was comprehensive from the home side. So yeah, it can kind of, because I'm a natural possible optimistic pessimist, which I know is an oxymoron, but you kind of think, well, yeah, I want to have a good game. Whoa, but not that good. We don't want to start too well, because it just sets you up for a fall, doesn't it? But in the end, all was well that ended well, wasn't it?
So, as we say there, 17 seconds, Davies gets the goal. Talking about optimistic pessimists, are you getting a bit worried he's not going to be here next season, Mikey, because he's just doing a bit too well?
Yeah, if I'm honest. However, I think that probably applies to all of the lone players. So, Lowe, Spence, obviously, Garner, obviously Davies. But I think that's kind of testament to Cooper and his staff. I think you'd be hard pushed to argue that none of them have kind of increased their value over the time here. I think they've all showed what they can bring to a team, certainly at this level. And I think in the case of Spence and Davies, is a real big argument for should they be at a higher level already, which I guess is the whole idea of loans, right? So you pair up centre now if they show that they can do it, a bit like we did with Brennan Johnson in League One. He then gets his chance in a higher league. So it's kind of a win-win for everything. However, on a positive note, you have to look at what Aston Villa are doing with their team at the moment. They've got a very high-profile manager, incredible recruitment with players like Coutinho coming in, which is mad. So they've already got Ings, they've already got Watkins as well. I'm not sure he does get in that team. If I'm honest, I'm not even sure he gets on the bench. And that's not a slight for Keinan Davis, because he's been magnificent since he's been here. I just think the level that Villa in particular might be punching at the moment might be slightly high. And you've got to remember, he's not 20 or 21. I think he's 24, might be slightly wrong. So he's at the stage in his career now where he probably wants to play every game. And I think he intimated it as much in his press conference afterwards, where he was basically saying, I'm loving playing. I'm loving playing every week. I'm loving starting. I'm getting better. I'm getting into a rhythm. I think he used the word rhythm. So, of course, he wants to test himself in the Premier League. Everybody would. I'm just not sure he gets in the team at Villa. So, certainly if Forest can somehow get over the line and get promoted, I think we're in prime position to get him in. And even if that's not the case, he's clearly enjoying his time down here, as is Max Lowe. So, James Garner came back for a second loan spell this season because he enjoyed it so much. And I know there are other teams in for him. There's no reason why, we can't potentially get him again, whether that be a loan or a permanent. So, but I think it's good, because players will see, and managers will see that players come here, they get better, they get a chance in the first team, they increase their value. Why would you not want to loan players to Forest going forward? So I think it's a negative because you don't want to lose your good players, but it's a positive because the system's clearly working.
I think as well. I mean, Mikey makes such a good point there. He's 24 years old. I think he's just about to get to 3 figures for games, for appearances at 24. And that's me not, there's no prejudgment there. And I think it's from a goal scoring point of view, again, just into double figures. So if you're talking about a striker who's 24, that's not played more than 100 games and scored more than, 50, not 1 and 2, 20 odd goals, then it's, then he's obviously hit on something here that's getting the best out of him. Whether he's had the chances before, that's a different thing. You'd have presumed he had more chances in the Championship when Aston Villa were there, and obviously moving through the gears, the type of player that they're attracting. I mean, it's no disgrace not to be in a team that is expensively assembled. You look at the money they spent on the likes of Danny Ings and Buendia and people like that. These are fantastic players that have really kind of shown their worth in English football, whether it's by virtue of selection or the right place at the right time or change of management, or so many things can come into a player not playing the assumed amount of games that you would do for a 24-year-old footballer. But I think the key thing that you're seeing now with Keinan, I mean, the second goal's magnificent. It's the stick that was used to kind of gently beat Keinan with was that he had one way of approaching scoring a goal. With regards to if you're one-on-one, if the chance came, it was a bit more blunt force than anything else. That second goal is of a player with confidence absolutely oozing out of every pore, the wherewithal to know where the opposition is and where the goal is, and a touch of class that is probably not had the chance to show on a consistent basis. Mikey uses the word rhythm, and he's absolutely right. Whether it was someone like me that needed to get games under his belt to be able to just run up and down all day, or someone like Keinan who quite clearly the confidence comes from leading the line for a gigantic club like Nottingham Forest, seems to be bringing the best out of him. And Mikey, once again, not just because you're here and I like you a lot, but the point that you make about what Steve's doing on behalf of Nottingham Forest. Look at the players he got on loan at Swansea. Mark Gurhey, Ryan Brewster, lads that you'd heard a bit of before, and then you saw in real time in the Championship, you were like, my word, I mean, these are fantastic footballers. He's doing the same with players at Forest. So hopefully this becomes a moot point by the fact that we talk about Forest that are in the Premier League next season. But if not, they should be able to attract players from big clubs in the Premier League that want to go to Steve and say, look, can you help develop these? Which is then mutually beneficial for Forest.
I think I said this recently. I mean, Davies is behind Cameron Archer as well, isn't he? Because Archer's like 21 and scoring goals at Preston. We're talking about his age. So he's like fourth choice. There goes my Hoover again. The second goal is Collymore-esque, really. But the first goal is the kind of goal you want to see a striker score in the box. How pleased is Cooper going to be with that, Mikey, to see 2 different kinds of goals?
Yeah, very. I would have thought. So I'll be honest. When we signed Keinan Davis, I think I might have said it on here. You only go on what you see, and he was a bit part player at Villa, 10, 15 minutes, and he looked a lot bigger as well at Villa. I don't know whether he's done a bit of conditioning work, but they used to lump balls up to him, and I thought, he's a 20-minute option off the bench. He's so much more than that, and I think Saturday proved it. That first goal, running across the front man, he spoke about how Lewis Graben's been helping him in training. That was blatantly obvious. His first touch was magnificent, and obviously pokes the ball in. And that is a
grab and goal, isn't it, Mike? You're absolutely right. That is a grab and goal.
It certainly is, yeah. And you could see that as well. And but the second goal, oh my word! So I think the Collymore goal against Wimbledon in the mid-90s. This is how old I'm going back. This was the last time I really saw a striker sort of turn and leave 2 people for dead with like a body swerve, and then run directly at the opposition, and then curl it past the goalkeeper. That was just magnificent. I didn't necessarily think he had that in his locker, but he does. So he's obviously better than I think, and better than maybe a lot of people think. So yeah, it will bring attention on him. But my word, if he keeps doing that for the last 10 or 12 games, we've got a real chance. And we'll probably go on to Surridge in a little bit. Blimey, what a finish that was for the fourth. I know we'll talk about that shortly, but there's some serious options going forward now, which, wasn't the case at the start of the season, and that's why we're sort of flying up the league and just off the playoffs. So, fingers crossed. Let's keep doing what we're doing.
Let's jump ahead in the running order then a bit with Surridge. Is there a case for Surridge and Davies together? Davies can play from the left. I mean, I'm not saying he's Thierry Henry, but he can play in the kind of Thierry Henry cutting in from the wing way and just bulldoze defenders, and Surridge through the middle and Johnson from the right. If you're a fullback or a centre half in the Championship, you're not going to enjoy lining up against that, are you, Prutz?
No, you're absolutely right. I think, and again, Steve sets them up in a way to, when I say indulge those types of players, not in the sense that they forget any form of defensive responsibility, but they can then go forward and like you say, cause a bit of carnage. And I think you've got, particularly in Keinan and Surridge, players with a point to prove, which I think is a good thing. Brennan, of course, we've spoken about for so long, and is a beloved member of that team, isn't he, in that football club, and hopefully he can fulfil his footballing ambitions with Forest. But if not, you've got to enjoy the here and now of what it could possibly bring. So I think you're absolutely right. The pace that they bring, the physicality, as Mikey was talking about. And again, maybe it's just unlocking doors on the expectations of what players believe for themselves. Whether we now see Keinan operate in a way which, as you say, Collymore-esque, it's a grand example to use, but he was an astonishing footballer, wasn't he, for Forest? So if he gets anywhere near to emulating the type of effect, not necessarily where they are in the divisions, but if he's got the same effect, a talismanic effect, then it's happy days all round.
Is it a challenge for Cooper to keep both strikers happy? Because Surridge is coming off the bench and scoring goals. Is there a bit of a threshold where he says, hang on, boss, I do need to start here? Or will he be happy just to keep coming off the bench and doing what he's doing while the team's winning?
Knowing strikers like I do, I'm trying to balance time on the pitch with goals scored for them. And the ones that I came across, and they were all lovely and very idiosyncratic and a bit batty, they enjoyed scoring goals, whether that was a cameo or whether that was actually leading the line for the full game. So I think he seems, from my point of view, and the Steve Cooper that I've met and had the pleasure of working with and talking to, good at maintaining harmony in a dressing room. And I think if the common goals are there, I think you see it on the pitch. I think I'm interested to see what Mikey thinks about this. It's as likeable a Forest side as I've seen for quite a bit, I think. And I think the manager sets the tone for that. And the type of players, another player that we're going to come on and talk about, Ryan Yates, who have evolved, improved, and the fans that have stuck with these players are now, I think, reaping the rewards of that with the way Steve's put them all together.
And Mikey, that is like Prut says, it's a common topic on here. The last team you actually liked and enjoyed. This is one we like and enjoy, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I was nodding when Prutz was talking about likability. I think if you just hark back to 12 months ago, I was on the complete other end of the scale. I did not like that football team or how it set about its business or, the characters, whatever. But I think with this one, with the new management, the new leadership, and that goes right from the top in terms of recruitment, so Dave Murphy, his team, everybody like that, you're now seeing what they're all about. And you feel that in the stands as well. So obviously, we're on a great cup run, for example. So everybody's buzzing and, the atmosphere has been fantastic, all those cup games. But in the league as well, there's sometimes a case of after the Lord Bears show and whether the atmosphere maybe doesn't replicate. But it does. And you see that. And even in tough periods where, you're on the back foot and you're holding on, the crowd's there and, the atmosphere is fantastic. And you can genuinely sense a bit of affinity with some of these characters. I think it helps when you've got players like Worrell and Brennan Johnson and Ryan Yates, guys that know the city, been there since they were kids, know the football club. That's the spine of the team. That's literally the spine of the team. So that really helps. And then the players around it, sometimes with, I'm going to contradict myself slightly here, but sometimes with lone players, you don't necessarily get the same level of effort as you would maybe with somebody that's been there since they were 7. Not the case with these guys. In fact, if anything, some of our lone players have been our better players this season. So they're all pulling in the same direction. And once you do that for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, the crowd will recognise that and bond. And I remember a Fulham game where we got beat 4-0, I think, this season. And I was a bit scathing after it because I'm quite emotional when it comes to Forest. They got applauded off the pitch. And that was because they saw the effort. So they knew they were beaten by a better team, but the fans resonated with what the guys were trying to do. And then you're not going to face Fulham every week, are you? So when you face teams that you can beat and you apply the same effort and you apply everything we're supposed to be about now, it just gathers momentum on. And you can see that. And the thing that really enthuses me is we get into, quote unquote, the business end of the season. And we seem to be we seem to be getting better. Whereas other teams maybe are stalling a little bit if you go through them. We're literally probably I've not seen the stats.
Form team, I'd say. It feels like, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels that way, and that's half the battle.
You talk about a year ago and things getting better. I guess Ryan Yates epitomises that. He signed a new contract till 2025 today. It's just the transformation in terms of on the ball, really. Everything off the ball and leadership and that work ethic was always there. But the passing through the lines positively, Prutton, creating chances. I mean, how impressed have you been across the whole championship for Ryan Yates this season?
I think it's been fantastic. We have spoken several times on here before, Matt, about when things haven't been so great. It's been for a very small faction of Forest following. He was an easy kind of one to go after, wasn't he? Really, which knowing the player and watching the player and having come across him pre and post match on a tiny couple of occasions, genuinely nice kid. I say kid, it's a bit condescending. Genuinely nice young fella. The lads that I know that have played with him, Glenn Murray, Michael Dawson, all say exactly the same thing. Works hard, good teammate, good in the dressing room. Fundamentally a good player. I mean, underpinning all that, you do have to be actually pretty good at your job to make sure that you A, stick around, and B, be able to work through the slightly tougher times. But again, he's been the benefit of good coaching, and not just from a football point of view, but possibly from the point of view of the not kind of saying about the way that a manager or coach loves you, but the way that he is valued. That's probably the word I'm looking for. Valued by both his teammates, his peers, and the man that actually picks the team. So I think it's a great, not necessarily a transformation, because I always thought there was a decent player in there. And then obviously it remains to be seen what he does with the next portion of his career, whether that involves Premier League football and whether he gets a chance either with Forest or elsewhere to do that. But signing a contract till 2025 is a ringing endorsement of the work that he's put in so far over the course of his career. And I just think, without sounding too twee about it, and then we know in football we're very quick to tell players what they've done wrong, there's a lot there to pat Ryan on the back and say really, really well done. And again, I mentioned to Mikey just then about the likability factor of this team. I think even those that may have questioned him in certain regards, Mikey, would now not necessarily be begrudgingly saying well done, but kind of thinking, well, good on you for proving certain people wrong, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I just have to agree with everything you just said. I think it's even the doubters, even the ones that potentially still can't say anything, then at least can see the huge amount of effort that the guy puts in, and the fact that he's, as you said, Prutz, really and clearly respected by everybody around him, his players, his professionals, fellow professionals, his coaching staff. You know, there's a reason why he plays all the time for all the managers we've had, and it's probably down to that. So brilliant reward for him getting this new contract. I think it's thoroughly deserved. He's been brilliant the last month, hasn't he, in general? So it's come at a great time. Just adds that another bit of momentum for us. You know, our key players are sticking around. So yeah, it's really positive.
He's got that useful knack of arriving in the box, which helps in open play, but also in set pieces. Forest in years gone by, I think it'd been a bit of a soft touch, but now they've got three good centre halves. Davies can head a ball clear. Yates is a big lad in midfield. It just makes them a more imposing team, doesn't it, Prutz, overall?
It does, and as any Forest fan will see over the course of this very long amount of time away from the Premier League, is that the Championship is I think it's developed from a tactical point of view and a technical point of view, but the things, the fundamentals that you still need. you still need them. You need to be strong, as you say, in both boxes. You need to be fit, which is what Ryan epitomises. And I think again, we talk about the transformation, possibly looking at the team a year ago that might have been deemed a bit of a soft touch. I don't think that's too harsh a thing to say. And what happens in that regard is when you see balls go into the box as a fan, you're kind of on the edge of your seat thinking anything could happen here. Whereas now it feels like we talked about Steve Cook, and hopefully it's not too big of a layoff, but you've got real voices and commanding presences there. And whether Keinan's doing wonderful things going forward, a very good centre forward that gets dragged back into his own 18-yard box is normally a head on a stick, and he's there smashing balls away and getting in the way of stuff and using that physical presence to make sure that you're keeping the back door shut. So I think, again, it goes back to good organisation, a well set up side, and just how key set pieces are at any level of football.
If we look at the fourth goal, I'm just looking at the bench here. It's interesting that Silva came on ahead of Mighton and Lolly. I must admit, I'm still not 100% sold on Silva, but it was a really good cross, wasn't it, Mikey? A good team move and another good finish from Surridge.
Yeah, I know you're not sold on him because I'm not either, if I'm being perfectly honest. However, I'm not going to contradict what I've just said about Ryan Yates. I'm open to change my mind. And if he keeps doing what he's doing, then, you know, he could be a very useful impact player, certainly for the last sort of 10, 12 games. I'm not... need to choose my words carefully. In terms of like a big game, if we were, you know, down to the last 6 games and we're playing Bournemouth away or something, I'm not sure I'd probably start him. But I think he has proven that he has something to give. He's a bag of tricks, isn't he? Let's be honest. I mean, I think there was one point at Leicester where I think the guy's still looking for the ball. He just completely it was. I still don't know how he did it. The trick. So he's obviously got that in his locker, and the ball into the box for the Surridge goal was absolutely perfect. It was a beautiful ball. In fact, the whole goal was, you know, started from the back, moved through the thirds, Kafu whipping it round, and then the crossing and the finish. It was textbook stuff you'd probably see at a much higher level than in the Championship. So Silva, I think, I'm not sure Steve has maybe made his mind upon Silva, Mighton and Lolly, as in who's the first choice to come on in those wide areas. And Matt, you were saying, is there an option to play Davies there, like I think we did at Millwall? And so he's got so many options in those areas. I think it's just a bit of horses for courses, and maybe, you know, when you are 3-0 up, Silva's the guy you throw on just to do something different. It's like I'm not 100% convinced on him. I think my first choice off the bench would probably be Mighton, because, you know, he worked with Steve at the under 20, I think, level in England. He's rapid. He's, you know, again, another young lad. He's only going to get better. But do you know what? It's a great problem to have, isn't it? Having all these options off the bench. And Joe Lolly was our player of the season a year or two ago. Now he's scratching around for 2 minutes here and then. So again, you know, the squad will be tested with Lowe out and Cook out potentially. The Cook one didn't look too good. So you are going to get these in the final third areas as well in the midfield. So they've all got a part to play from here to the end of the season. There's no doubt about that, especially with the running of fixtures that we've got. It's pretty much 2 or 3 games a week solid from now until the end of the season. So you are going to have to rotate. You're not going to be able to play the same 11 week in, week out. They're going to be knackered. So Silva is going to get his chance. And let's hope I'm wrong, and let's hope he can do it from the start. And he's, you know, he stays in the team. Because if you keep your shirt, you're obviously doing something right.
I suppose a maverick off the bench is useful, isn't it, Prutz? I mean, on paper, João Carvalho would have been nice for that, but you can't be a 15-minute maverick off the bench when you cost 13 million quid. But when you cost 250 grand from West Ham, you can come on for 10 or 15 minutes. And, you know, when defences are tired and get at them, Silva's kind of a good option in that sense, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think Mike is right. I mean, it shows the evolution of the team, doesn't it? When you look at what Joe Lolly is. He'll be one of the more established members of the side, won't he, as in the squad? And whether from a kind of a wages point of view, there's a factor in that as well. But it goes to show that, and when I say this about Steve not necessarily picking on reputation and experience, he's picking on apps on the here and now, which I'm sure if you're a Forest fan, that's exactly what you want. Players in form the team that's playing well together, because sometimes it's about whether it's not just about a player playing well by himself, so like Ryan Yates, but with how good a player Garner is. What does Garner bring to Yates' game? What does Yates bring to Garner's game? You know what I mean? What does how does Keinan reflect well on Brennan? How does Brennan interact with Sam? So, you know what I mean? The different kind of elements of what brings the very absolute necessity of a team together is what's working so well here. And as you say, with Mighton, we've seen Mighton in fits and starts with the natural ability that he's got. It needs to be finely tuned, finely honed. I think there's and again, but if you can work with the base of what he's got, I mean, you're already ahead of several sets of players, right, with the pace that he's got, the fitness levels that he's got, and the ability to get about the pitch and the tenacity to do that. There's certainly a lot as we move towards this end of the season, when you need hopefully as much of your squad as fit as possible, but the variation. And again, I think that's the pleasing thing that you look at with Nottingham Forest is it feels to me they've got so many different ways now to win a football match. Yes, they had to stick in it at times in the first half against a team that's fighting right down at the bottom of the Championship, but it got through that as a team. It got through that collectively, and then Steve gets him in at half-time, as he's done, like we saw in the Derby game. After half an hour, changed things around, got into the half-time, changed things again, and takes the game away from the opposition. It's a very well-drilled side. And I don't just mean the 1 to 11, I mean the players that are coming on as well.
Yes, you've segued nicely into the last kind of two players we're going to talk about. One of them's Kafu. There's a comment here from Richard watching live. Do you think Kafu shifts momentum back in our favour as he's more dynamic and can pull the opposition forward and open up a bit of space for our attackers? Kafu's a bit of a silver player for me. I'm almost sold on Kafu. He does his job.
It's only been how many years, has he?
Oh, I know. Well, yeah. I mean, he's fine. I don't think he's a player you're going to get promoted with as a starter, but coming off the bench and playing against a pretty average Reading team, he's probably just what you need. I'm not sure. What do you think, Mikey? If you need to start Kafu against Fulham or Bournemouth to win a game, I'm not sure I'd be so optimistic. But he serves he serves a purpose in the squad, and he seems a perfectly serviceable player and a good bloke. But is he what Forest quite needs in the starting 11?
I don't want to be harsh. I'm kind of more in your camp, Matt. I think again, it's horses for courses. There are times when he'll come on and make an impact, absolutely. But I don't think he's one I would start. I think you've got options with, Jack Cole back in there, obviously Garner, Yates. There is a few options in there. You can tweak the system as well. But to be fair, right, and again, going to go on the other. To be fair, he did well when he came on. And when he did that touch for the fourth goal, I thought he mishit it. And I said to my wife, next to me, I said, "Oh, he's not meant that." And then when I watched it back, he genuinely did mean that. So hands up, I was again wrong. So, but I think people can see, the fans can see. Obviously, trying to speak on behalf of them, and I think Rich put on a comment. You can see his effort, and you can see he gets stuck in, and he is useful. I'm not necessarily sure he played like 46 games, but we're not in that position. So Kafu again could play a big part in the running, but I think I'd be very specific as and when to use him. I think away from home, where you need to stiffen something up because he's a big lad, isn't he? And he puts the challenges in. He's very good in the air. He's certainly not a number 10, as our previous manager thought he was. Not in a million years. But I don't know, if you're 1-0 up away from home, half an hour to go, yeah, game on. Absolutely. So I think it's the need of the situation. And I think he is useful. And that's probably all I have to say on that, Matt. Otherwise, I'll get dragged down a worm.
Well, I should cut in. I mean, I must blast this comment out because Prutz gets so much stick on here. Prutz, you're a legend, says Paul. I have to flash that up because it goes so much against the grain. So
cheers, Paul. That's very kind of you. Yeah.
Someone commented on your YouTube picture in the background as well, saying they enjoyed it, Prutz.
Yes, Joshua Tree. Let's. There's another tangent for us to go. No, it's big fan. Yes.
Let's move to the last player I wanted to discuss, Ethan Horvath. Mikey, we were in the pub afterwards, and I don't know if you reflect differently after the beers have gone away. You wanted Sambert back in. I don't know where I am on it. I mean, Horvath, he's kept 4 clean sheets out of 5 games, I think. He does make me nervous when the ball's at his feet. I don't know whether he's the best keeper or not. Do they need to make a choice Prots, or just keep going as they are going and say, Ethan, it's your shirt till things change?
I think I always think it's a big statement, and maybe this is a slightly old and outdated way of looking at it, because you see at the top level, managers chop and change goalkeepers for different competitions, don't they? But I've always felt if you've got a goalkeeper that's in decent enough form, like you say, there might be a hint of nervousness. I mean, Breeze can be just as nerve-shreddingly interesting, shall we say, when you watch him. And I think if the back four in front, you talk about the clean sheets as well, and if the back three in front or the back four in front is happy enough with them, I've always thought it takes something quite big for a goalkeeper to get, you know what I mean, several games worth of chucking the ball in or looking nervous or just looking a little bit indecisive. That's when you make the difference. Like I said, key save from him early on in the game against Reading at 1-0, which, again, the fine margins, if that goes in, it might be a different game altogether. But I, from what I've seen, the Forest fans that I kind of listen to and the feedback that you hear, I don't think there's anything particularly major that needs to be addressed with that. I really, really don't. Whether that's at the kind of, whether he's benefiting from those players in front of him, which might now change, obviously, with the Cook situation. But it's a collective. They've got to trust the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper's got to trust the people in front of him. And I think between the two of them, probably if you cobbled them together, you've got a pretty comprehensively good goalkeeper in the Championship. Obviously, we're talking about two separate entities. So I think both of them have been good over the course of a season, but also do give you those moments. I mean, when you sat there and when we covered the Derby game, and Breeze spent a lot of the last 10 minutes outside of his box comforting Derby players, chatting to Derby players, winding Derby players up, which I'm sure from Mikey's point of view, I bet you probably sat there in the stands absolutely loving what he's doing. But there are other times when you're kind of thinking, can you not take as many chances with your passing? Or just kind of like calm yourself down a bit. I'm intrigued, Mikey. Who for you is the number one? I mean, if he is the number one, they're not number ones anymore. They've got ridiculous numbers. But who for you is the first choice? Do you keep it with Ethan because of what he's done?
I would play Samba if I'm being brutally honest, and I haven't changed my mind since Saturday, Matt. So, and I try and explain why. So, Ethan's done great. Don't get me wrong, he's done fantastic. But I think it's a case of, and it's such an important position on the pitch. You know, like either boxers, your goalkeeper and your striker. And for me, I don't think there's a better goalkeeper in the Championship than Samba. I genuinely don't. So, for me, the answer is he's the better goalkeeper out of the two. And we're now going into the last 10 games or so of the season where you will win or lose probably by fine margins, to quote another ex-manager of ours. So for me, I wouldn't wait until Ethan makes a mistake to then drop him, because I think that would probably do him more harm in the long run to maybe say, you've done absolutely brilliant. Maybe play him in the cup against Liverpool. But I'm going to restore
just for the easy game.
Because let's be honest, you're not going to probably make the change now until he makes a mistake. And I understand my opinion will probably polarize a lot of people. But for me, it's just simple. So if Ryan Yates isn't fit or he's out the team and he finishes a suspension, he comes back in because he's our best midfielder. You know, if Keinan Davis isn't playing and he's injured, and he's available, he comes back in. And I think it's the same as the goalkeeper. I think there might be a bit of, you can't go around hitting people in the face, Samba. So he might be sort of teaching them maybe a little bit of a lesson. But how far does that lesson go? It's getting to interesting times now. So for me, I would just say thank you. You've been absolutely brilliant. But Samba is our number one goalkeeper.
That's such a good point you make there, Mikey, because and you've made me see it through different eyes there. Because of how specific and unique a goalkeeper's position is, I always think it's a huge statement. But as you say, if you've theoretically, if you've got a goalie, a striker that scored 20 goals, who's out for a couple of games, someone comes in, does okay, doesn't put a foot wrong, you're still going to go, well, that was great, but quite obviously we're going to put him back in the side. That's just the way this type of thing goes. Whether you look at what Breeze can do out the back with the ball at his feet, with regards to how Steve wants to go about building, and because you know what he's like, he loves the possession-based way of approaching a football match. Whether that helps them moving forward between now and the end of the season could possibly come into his thinking. And again, we cover a lot of football and we go to a lot of football matches, but the mindset that goes into what builds a team now and what sets a team up from Steve's point of view, and I'm sure he would deal with it in the best possible way if it was, thanks, Ethan, that's a portion of the season that we needed you for and you've done fantastic. You're not binning someone straight off. It's still quite obviously a valued member of the side, but if your first choice goalkeeper is fit, ready and raring to go, and maybe has learned a few lessons along the way, then I think Mikey makes a really strong point there, Matt, in the sense of that, why wouldn't you put your first choice goalkeeper back in?
Yeah, I suppose the problem is what it does to Horvath if he's dropped and if Samba comes in and punches someone else in the face, and you've got to go back to Ethan and say, actually, we need you to get us promoted now because, Samba's got sent off in the last game before the playoffs. It's a difficult bit of man management, isn't it? But it's, but then there's a responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's a responsibility for the players there as well, though. And again, I don't think it's not as chopping and changing. I mean, do we still use the word dropped anymore? It's quite synonymous when I was playing, but in the sense of team selection, rotation, there's another word for it. It's up to the manager, Steve, to keep players on side for as and when you need them. So I can totally see what you're saying, Matt, and possibly the fact that you speak to current and ex-footballers, you know how fragile they all are mentally when it comes to being liked. And that's maybe where I can absolutely understand what you're saying. And as much as confidence is key over the course across a formation of a team, it's even more key in a goalkeeper, because the minute you see a goalkeeper to start doubting himself, then, oh my word, you spend all the game on the edge of your seat after that, don't you, watching him?
True. Mikey, thoughts on QPR? It's an interesting one. It's not quite a must-win, but it's a very useful win, isn't it, in the midweek if they can do it?
Yeah, big game. I wasn't too upset that they won yesterday, if I'm honest, because I probably of all the teams around there, I quite fancy Forest against QPR. If I think Luton are a better team, Huddersfield, Bournemouth, all the ones in there, I think would give us, God, I sound really bad now, probably give us a tougher game than QPR over the two legs. That's not to say, actually what will probably happen now is QPR will go and beat us 3-0 and then I'll feel yeah. But I do fancy us against QPR because they take a lot of risks. Their manager, obviously our ex-manager, he has a certain way of playing, and I think if you press them high up, you've always got a chance. And historically, we've done all right against QPR, so I wasn't fussed about them winning yesterday. If anything, it might do us a favour. So let's get them down here on Wednesday. If we play like we did on Saturday, second half, we'll win the game. It's simple as that, really. And probably Zande Silva will probably get the winner, Matt, just to rub it in.
Breeze will save a penalty.
Yeah.
Right. I've moved rooms, so I didn't really listen to any of that.
It was good. It was good. It was the best thing that Mikey's done.
Yeah, it was.
If we look at the overall kind of promotion picture, then I'm going to put the table up here and just completely obscure you now, perhaps people who are watching on YouTube and Facebook. I've done it. I've gone down to 14th here. Is that the cut-off point now? West Brom in 14th on 50 points. Can they still make the playoffs?
Well, I mean, there's something about West Brom which is fundamentally not right. You look at that starting 11, it should not be 14th in the Championship by any stretch of the imagination. I think Steve's gone in there and realised just how tough a job that actually is going to be. I think Fulham, we saw them on Saturday against Barnsley, and they should have won, even though Barnsley were very good. The miss at the end from Harry Wilson, I don't think that's going to cost them anything too much coming into the season. Bournemouth with those games in hand. Huddersfield have been fantastic under Carlos. You can't begrudge where they are. But as Mikey's saying, you come up against a QPR side that did win on Sunday, but came off the back of back-to-back defeats. And Blackburn Rovers' form's fallen off a cliff from a defensive point of view and attack-wise. They're still scratching around looking to try and get back into some goal-scoring rhythm. Where Forest are now, nestled in 9th, given the points differential between themselves and Sheffield United in 6th, and the form that they're showing, I think there's every reason for Reds fans to be very, very happy indeed, because those ones in and around it, they're all beatable. I thought Chris was going to go in, and he has done in fits and starts at Middlesbrough and be very dominant in the way they go about it. But they've shown themselves to be at times a tad inconsistent. And the other ones, with the greatest respect, possibly with less expectations, Coventry, Millwall, Blackpool, and Preston, mean that where Forest are, it reflects on what Mikey said earlier on in the pod, saying how positive things can be, because QPR are beatable. You've got to harness what you saw on Saturday against Reading, and then that projects you and hurls you forward into the Liverpool game. There's a real good, without kind of overstating and overshooting where Forest are at the moment. Yes, Bournemouth have games in hand in second, but there's only really Fulham to me that looks like they are bound for the Premier League. The rest I still think is very much up in the air, which the time is now, isn't it, for Forest? The time is absolutely now, given this combination of players, loanees, players that are wanted by other clubs. The time is absolutely now to make their dent on the top end of the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think they need, realistically, 19 points from 11 games, Mikey, would take them to 74 points. You were making a good point before we started recording. They've got to play Fulham rearranged game, and they've got to play Bournemouth rearranged game very late in the season. And actually, you think that might be a good thing, depending on the state of play at the time in the table?
Yeah. The ideal scenario would be we play them sort of 2 of the last 3 games. They're both up. You know, it's a different kettle of fish playing a team that's celebrating than maybe a team that needs a point or so. So, yeah, and I think also as well, you've got to look at our goal difference. I think it's the 3rd best in the league, plus 15, plus 16, something like that. So that could be worth a point. You probably won't be. But I think everything is quite a positive outlook for Forest at the moment. I don't fear anybody in that top 6. I think I agree with Prutz. I think Fulham are there or thereabouts now. The rest of it is just completely up for grabs. But if we do end the season with those 2 tough away games, weirdly enough, it might not be as difficult as people think. That would be good, wouldn't it? If they're just playing, they've been partying all night and they come and
flip-flops are on.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be great.
If I'll just put the table back up again, and Prutz, the prediction man for Sky. I mean, who? If you're saying,
don't put any money on that, my word.
So you're saying Fulham?
Do you know what's happened as well with that? As a little aside, the fellow that I do it with, he's now. I think he's going to wash his hands of me, because it's now gone to the point where he said it's getting embarrassing. You've given Forest 25 points too many. So when we do. We talk about this on a weekly basis, and he gives me a bit of feedback, shall we say, via the internet, and it'll be somebody disgruntled saying, "Oh, like about winning or like prediction, whatever." And then I think at some stage he's going to put up, "Look what he's said." I mean, he's been like just too nice. he's been cowed into being pathetically too nice to go the other way. But sorry, the point you were making with regards to your new software,
Yes.
which means you can show us the table. It'd be great if just like your holiday snaps flashed up, wouldn't it?
Just remember that. I was going to make a joke about the Notts County chairman then. But
whoa, yeah.
Right. Fulham are winning the league for you. So give us your second place and your playoff teams, Prutz, out of curiosity.
Okay. I would. The assumption from me should be that Bournemouth, given the games in hand, should finish second. Then after that, I think possibly, can I give you them in no particular order? Is that doable for the 4? Huddersfield, yes. Something about Sheffield United screams yes. I think Forest, yes. So that leaves me with another. I'm going to go for. Do you know what? I'm going to go for Luton.
Oh, interesting.
Just a bit of a wild card.
They were my wild card at the start of the season.
And again, that's not me casting aspersions on QPR Blackburn, but just the form that I'm looking at for these lot and the type of people that are in charge. Nathan Jones, particularly at Luton, I can see them driving themselves forward. So there you go. No particular order at all.
Mikey, your top 2 and top 6 or playoff teams?
Yeah, sure. So Fulham will win the league. Bournemouth will finish second because they've got 8 million games in hand. And then the playoffs, in no particular order, will be us. Will be in there. Huddersfield, Sheffield United, and I think Middlesbrough Although my wife's not going to be happy with that because she comes from Hartlepool and she can't stand Middlesbrough. But I do think they will sneak in there because I think they've got a good manager and a good way of playing, and they score goals as well. So, and it'll be a tough play if it's those four. Blimey, there'll be some games in there, won't they? Blimey, that'll be great.
Yeah. It'd be fantastic if it's those, definitely. Yeah,
I think I'd go those four as well, and Luton would be my outside team. I don't think I'm putting the curse on Blackburn a bit here, but they need Ben Brereton Diaz to kick back into life, don't they? To absolutely run again.
But that they're just labouring under missed players. Obviously, with Ben's absence, Bradley Datcher's come back. He's only played 20 minutes in the first team for the first time in what, 3 years. It's coming back from that cruciate. So they perhaps expectation. Again, they're another team that needs to strike while the iron's hot because they've got so many players out of contract. But no, I think from what we've seen there, I think there's a nice spread of teams there that approach the Championship in different ways as well, which makes for the neutral side of it something to really kind of look forward to. Who's
winning the playoffs to finish the podcast?
Wow. Well, I mean, if anyone else, if any of the three of us on here say anyone but Forest, then yes. Mikey, for a start, won't be allowed back in the City Ground. Next time we do a game at the City Ground, I'll get even more stick than I do. And Matt, when you're not sat around the other parts of the stadium, then you'll get a bit as well. So,
yeah, I do like Forest, but I don't know.
That's always a good thing to say when we're chatting about it, isn't it?
I know. I do like Forest to win the playoffs, I should say, with the pace and the youth and the fearlessness. It might just favour them. But there's a long way to go before then, and people are going to tell me to take it one game at a time in the comments, no doubt. So we'll probably leave it there. An episode marred by dogs barking, Hoovers going off constantly, and Mike has to disappear to answer his door at one point, and I had to move rooms. So hopefully that didn't affect people's enjoyment. Perhaps you were the steady consciousness of the podcast this week, so thank you for that.
Well, I mean, that shows how glaringly off the pace we are. I found the steady hand on the tiller. The captain of the Titanic, just waving at everybody.
Yes, we're creating into the iceberg, so we should probably bail out. Mikey, thank you very much for this week.
No problem at all. At least it shows we're live. It's just the modern world, isn't it? Doors going off, dogs barking. It's the way it is. Yeah.
So we'll leave it there. Thanks very much to everyone who watched live. Drop comments in if you're watching live, and if you're listening on iTunes, you enjoyed it, do subscribe and give us a good rating. We've had quite a few of those late, which I do very much appreciate. Right, we'll leave it there. Prutz, enjoy the rest of your day.
I shall, and it's been a pleasure, chaps, to speak to you both. Good luck for the week, and then obviously next weekend. My word, that is a game for the ages, isn't it, between those two?
Yes, in fact, I should say we're back on Thursday with perhaps you, Mikey, I'm not sure, and also Nick Marshall, who is the Deputy Director of Liverpool's Academy and also ran Forest Academy for years. So someone who
it's his fault. It's his fault.
Well, he's going to give us some expert insight from both camps, so that should be good. Right, thanks very much, everyone, and we'll see you soon.